Welcome to Series 3 of our podcast series, Conversations with Auditors. Today we're going to talk about the life sciences and healthcare industry, its history in Ireland, and some of the challenges and opportunities facing the industry today. We'll also discuss some of the important items that might impact your financial reporting and your year-end audit. And with me today is Sean O'Keefe. Sean is a retired audit partner, a former head of audit at KPMG Ireland, and he's been the auditor to many public and private life sciences and healthcare entities in both Ireland and in the US. Sean is also a non-executive director for a number of companies. My name is Owen O'Brien, and I'm a director in our life sciences audit group in KPMG. Sean, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thanks,
and it's great to have you back inside the doors of KPMG. Sean, there's no doubt that Ireland has been a powerhouse in the life sciences industry. It's often been described as a dispensary to the world. 19 of the top 20 global pharmaceutical companies have a presence here, and 18 of the top global medical devices companies have a presence here, and many of those have been here for decades. President Trump has even praised Ireland for being very smart in attracting some of those companies to Ireland. You've been at the forefront of the industry here in Ireland. Can you tell us a bit about its history and why it's been so successful?
Well, thanks, Owen, and thanks for asking me in today. So, really, the growth of the pharmaceutical sector in Ireland goes back to the late 1950s. And as part of the Irish government under Sean Lemass wanted to industrialise the country and move away from an agrarian economy into an industrial economy. And they put together incentives to attract industry, and one of the industries that they wanted to attract was the pharmaceutical industry. And those incentives were around a low predictable corporate tax rate, government grants, employment grants, and capital grants, and then access to land. So, again, manufacturers want sites that are fully serviced, and the government put together packages of land which they were able to then to sell to these pharmaceutical companies. So it started in the late 1950s with Leo Pharma. They were one of the first to come to Ireland. Picked up momentum. Foreign investors saw that Ireland had a very strong government, proactive government that encouraged them to invest in the country. Good rule of law, stable politics, low tax rates, incentives, good workforce, and it grew and grew, and all the big pharma companies from particularly the US and Europe and more laterally Asia decided that it would be a good idea to invest in Ireland because of those factors that I've mentioned, and set up here and grew, and the whole ecosystem fed off itself, in that it became more and more attractive because more people got involved in the industry, there was more skills and expertise, and it became attractive then for big pharma to be here. It's all back really to these decisions that these corporates make are multi-million, billion-dollar investment decisions that are recovered over a long period of time. And so they need certainty and predictability in the business so that they're comfortable that they can recover the investment. And Ireland has been very good at helping them to do that. If I give an example maybe of Ireland's leading pharmaceutical company over that period was Elan Corporation, which isn't with us here today, and I'll explain a little bit about that. But Elan was founded in the late 1960s by Don Paynos. Don Paynos was a US pharmaceutical executive, a pharmacist who had founded Mylan Laboratories. And his particular focus and concern was in drug delivery systems. And there was a dispute in the US between him and other executives at Mylan about the direction the company would take. And Don Paynos came to Ireland with this vision of building up a drug delivery business. So he founded Elan Corporation in the late 1960s and started doing work for other pharmaceutical companies in designing drug delivery systems for them. The company listed, it was the first Irish company to list in the US, and it listed in the early 1980s. And by that time, it was doing work for Marion on a drug called Cardizem. And drug delivery systems, the idea behind it really is to help with patient compliance. So people were taking this Cardizem drug, a hypertension drug. They were taking four tablets a day. And what Elan did was to develop a system whereby they only had to take the thing once or twice a day for its delayed release, so it ensured better patient compliance. And cardizem then became one of the top selling hypertension drugs in the world. So that's what they did, and they built the world leading drug delivery business in Ireland. At the same time, they had a twin track approach, and Elan started to develop a fully fledged pharmaceutical business with leading programs in neurology. And it did that for many years, ultimately developed a product called Tysabri, which was a world leader for multiple sclerosis in collaboration with Biogen Idec. And it eventually sold that to Biogen Idec for over $3 billion. Developed the drug delivery business over many years, and then actually sold that also to Alkermes, a US pharmaceutical business. Elan's main facility was in Athlone, and this goes back again to, the reasons why pharmaceutical businesses came to Ireland. So when Don Paynos was establishing this business, the major incentives were given for businesses that were west of the Shannon. So he went to essentially to a place called Monksland in County Roscommon, which is just outside Athlone, because the incentives were stronger. Yeah. Also, they were able to get a very large parcel of land, which allowed the business to grow its manufacturing capabilities over the years. So that's why they were there. Alkermes bought that business and had that facility and developed it over quite a number of years. And then very interestingly, in the last 2 years, Alkermes restructured its global manufacturing and sold that facility to Novo Nordisk, who are the world leader in diabetics and weight loss drugs, and are very keen to expand their manufacturing footprint. So that speaks a little bit to what's happened in Ireland, where you had Elan established in the 60s, built up its business, sold its drug delivery business, which was leading in the world, to Alkermes, and then when Alkermes restructured, sold that manufacturing facility to Novo Nordisk, who will build it and expand it. Yeah. And in terms of Elan's neurology business, they spun that out into a company called Procena, which is still a client of KPMG today, which has some of the world's leading research in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Yeah. And so that gives a sort of a flavour for, the small beginnings in the late 50s into, a very sophisticated ecosystem and environment for pharmaceutical business today. Yeah. No, I think a lot of what we see today, Sean, can be traced back to what you've discussed there. So that's really interesting. I guess, a lot of what we see today, though, that success, I suppose, can't be taken for granted. Nope, that's right. We've seen the Trump administration talk about trying to attract some of those companies back to the US. Mm-hmm. I guess, what do you see as some of the challenges and opportunities that are facing the industry, perhaps in Ireland today? Yeah. The opportunities more globally for the pharmaceutical industry are the fact that the population of the world is growing and it's aging, it's getting older, so they need more treatment. And the kinds of things that are needed are, neurological type things. Alzheimer's now is a big killer, Parkinson's, and those kinds of things. So the opportunity for drug companies in terms of discovery and the sale of their product is large. And so then really, what does Ireland need to do to continue to play an important part in that? And that's really to do the things that it has done extremely well. So what's very important to these people, if you looked at, say, when Wyeth built a biologics facility out in Newcastle, it's now owned by Pfizer. Pfizer acquired Wyeth. That was a multi-billion-dollar investment. That'll be recovered over 10, 15, 20 years. So it's very important to these large pharmaceutical corporates to have predictability and stability in the environment in which they operate. And for them, that's essentially a corporation tax rate that's low and predictable, and that they can be comfortable will survive that 15, 20-year period. I remember at the time of the financial crisis, when Ireland had to take a bailout from the EU and IMF, an $85 billion bailout. Some of the major pharmaceutical corporates that had invested very significant resources in Ireland went specifically to meet the Minister of Finance to understand what would happen to Ireland's corporate tax rate in the context of taking that bailout, because there was quite a lot of pressure in Ireland to increase its corporate tax rate to align it more with other European countries. Yeah. And Ireland resisted manfully changing that corporate tax rate, because I think Ireland understood that it was of such fundamental importance to inward investment and protecting their investment, and that they had built their models and made their investments on the basis that corporate tax rates would be at a certain level. And that was very important. Having incentives where appropriate is important. Having service land, so that's having water and electricity, available to these people, and then having a skilled workforce. And the Irish universities have been absolutely excellent, together with the government, in designing courses and training people who then can use those skills in pharmaceutical manufacturing and in the pharmaceutical industry generally. So being strong at all of those things is extremely important, and being helpful and available to big corporates to help them on their journey as they invest in your country. Like you say, some of the downsides are around the US government's pull for pharmaceutical businesses to move back to the US to manufacture there. And obviously there's lots of announcements of hundreds of millions and billions of dollars of investment dollars going into the US in the back of President Trump's announcements. And then the whole tariff situation is creating significant uncertainty. And again, as I mentioned, the most important thing for these long-term investors is certainty. So this uncertainty is very upsetting for them, and is likely to mean that in the near term, investment decisions will be slower.
Okay. And in terms of challenges around like pricing or supply chain disruption, how do you see the industry being impacted by any of those items?
Well, the industry is very much impacted by pricing and supply chain and research and development. It's a very research intensive industry. So on the pricing side, the pricing is really determined by the cost of the research and the production. So to get a pharmaceutical compound to market, I think on average the studies that look into this suggest that costs are somewhere in the region of $2.5 to $3 billion to get a pharmaceutical compound to the market, and that can take 8 to 10 years. Where you might have patent protection for 20 years, but 10 of those years are in the discovery phase, meaning that you have 10 years to recover that 2 to 3 billion or more in your revenues. So it's typically pharmaceutical products then will be relatively expensive. Governments and payers, healthcare systems around the world are struggling, and governments are generally running deficits. Populations are aging, people are living longer, healthcare is costing more, and so governments are constantly then looking at ways to reduce the bills, and that's going to pharmaceutical companies and seeking to get discounts off the headline price of the product. Pharmaceutical companies need those high prices to generate sufficient profit then to reinvest in research and development. So there's always that pull and push and that tension between the payer and the pharmaceutical company about the pricing. Other big issues for pharmaceutical companies then are around the product patent cliff.
Yeah.
So again, you have that 20-year period. Quite a number of those years of patent protection, quite a number of those years are eroded by the research phase. You might have 10 years to sell the product where you don't have competition. When you have competition, either through generics or biosimilars, the price falls very dramatically. If it's a generic product to a chemical drug, it could be 80–90% fall in the headline price. A biosimilar, the fall off is not quite as steep, but still very steep. So estimates are that 12% of the global market for pharmaceuticals will come off patent in 27–28, something like $180 billion. And those companies are all out in the market trying to replenish that pipeline, either through their own internal research and development efforts or by looking at the possibility of buying other smaller biotechnology companies. So that's a big issue. Supply chain is a big issue for pharmaceuticals. These companies that we see in Ireland are manufacturing all over the world, sourcing materials globally, so very complex supply chain arrangements. Some concerns that corporates have are around the fact that quite a lot of active pharmaceutical ingredient that's used in the manufacture of pharmaceuticals is sourced in China, manufactured in China. A lot of global tension between America and China and how that might play out, how that might affect people. So pharmaceutical companies are therefore trying to source material from other jurisdictions. And then just general geopolitical uncertainty around the world where things are a little bit more unstable. It's not great for any business and not great for pharmaceutical businesses. And so they'd be retrenching. I think a lot of them will be retrenching to the US and to Europe, where they're more comfortable with the stability of the political environment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And from an investment perspective, then, is there much going on in the mergers and activities market, or any IPOs upcoming? Or
IPO market has been quiet, very quiet. M&A activity in the pharmaceutical sector is always significant. It can be very, very significant with mega deals, and then it goes through periods of less of mega deals, but all the time big pharma is trying to replenish its pipeline, and that means it's on the lookout for new and emerging products, therapeutic areas, technologies which are typically housed in biotech companies, so looking to buy biotech. Biotech was extremely well funded at the turn of the 2020s. So 2021 was peak funding for biotechnology, allowing lots of research to happen. That funding has dried up because interest rates are high. People are able to invest elsewhere. They need to replenish their pipelines, and the place to do that is through biotechnology. Prices of biotechnology assets came down substantially because of the deficit in funding. But those prices have now stabilized, and they're more likely to be willing sellers. So based on that patent cliff that people expect to happen in 27, 28, and the amount of replenishment that's required by big pharma, people expect that there will be significant deals over the next 12 to 18 months in the biotech area. And then larger deals between larger pharmaceutical companies, those are probably less in favor, because deals that were done historically maybe didn't generate the kinds of returns that investors had hoped for. It's very hard to bring two large businesses together and integrate them in a way that provides a very full return to investors. So markets aren't that comfortable with those very large mega deals, and would prefer, I think, corporates to spend the resources on their internal research and development, and maybe picking off biotechs with interesting technology.
Yeah. And if we think about then from a financial reporting perspective, and people looking ahead to their year-end audits, what kind of items should people be thinking about, or what are some of the risk areas that you see?
Yeah, I suppose it very much depends on the nature of the particular company. If the life sciences company is in a research phase and pre-revenue, then it's really about its business plan. Is it fully funded? Where is the research? When is that likely to generate cash flow, and the impact that has on any of the assets on its balance sheet and going concern? And those are the kinds of things you might be considering there. If the company is a developed business that has been acquiring product or businesses, it's going to have very significant tangible and intangible assets on its balance sheet. And again, with patent expirations and pricing under pressure, you'd be looking very much at the assumptions you have around models around the recovery of the carrying value of fixed assets and intangible assets. So all the assumptions that go into product life cycle, product pricing, cost, that'll be very important. And then also, which is always important in the industry, is revenue recognition, and essentially rebates that will be paid to governments and healthcare payers, and whether those are properly calculated. They're very complex calculations, and as we mentioned before, governments are very keen to get rebates from pharmaceutical companies, and those need to be recorded in the correct period.
Thank you very much, Sean. That was a really interesting insight into the history of the life sciences and healthcare industry in Ireland, some of the challenges and opportunities that are facing the industry today, and where it's headed in the future. If you have any questions or needs in the healthcare or life sciences industry, feel free to reach out to us here at KPMG. We'd be delighted to help. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.